All right, Randy, you're on.
I just need to say something about Doug. Looking at his picture, when I was a kid, I used to watch a TV show called Learn to Draw with John Nagy, and you are the spitting image of him. So, brings back memories, my friend.
Did
Welcome
not
back.
know that.
Welcome back.
Thank
So,
you.
we all have the potential to be extraordinary, but yet few of us really reach it. We have virtually infinite access to information today, yet professional and personal growth tends to be inconsistent and elusive at best. What does it take? Doug Grady has helped thousands of people reclaim their focus and grow towards their personal potential. Doug is a TEDx speaker and a highly requested keynote speaker. He's the author of The Ripple Effect, which I have a copy, which has been widely read and highly endorsed. And he also developed the life-changing program, 40 Days of Focus, which I also have and read both of them, by the way. Doug gives a significant portion of his time and his money to both local and global causes. He's been on several mission trips, including to Ecuador, where he was part of a 12-man team building homes for the poorest of the poor. His companies, writings, trainings, and music are designed with one purpose: to help people reach their God-given potential. And before I let him go, David would like to say a few words as well. David?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, Doug, I have speakers every week, and if you haven't heard Warrior versus Zombie podcast with the episode with Doug, encourage you to go and listen to that. But more importantly, many of you know in the network group that I've had quite a transformational journey since the last time Doug spoke with us. And through a very simple, a focus on planking, which is kind of a weird thing, I actually went on a health and wellness journey that enabled me to lose 70 pounds, get off all medications, and really increase the possibility that I can actually achieve now my vision of 120 years at a vitality of a 30-year-old. Another thing I just learned with Doug is he just went through double hip replacement, which I'm actually looking at single hip replacement. So I'm going to be reaching out to him after this to kind of figure out how that all went down. So, but anyway, with that, an amazing man. He's had a great impact on my life, and I just felt compelled, Doug, to make sure I told everybody at least where you were in my heart right today. So with that, Doug Grady.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Randy. A couple familiar faces here. I have done this both with a screen share and without today. I think I will do it without, and I want to encourage you all, if you're so inclined, to activate your camera, fully participate. I can't see you. In fact, I can see you even less if your camera is not activated, but it just gives you a chance to get the most out of the short time that we have together. So if you can, Kevin, Marv, Patricia, Jason, show up powerfully and choose to be here all in if you can. I am actually wearing pants today for the first time in 3 months. I had my first face-to-face meeting here in Atlanta with Matt Tarkenton, who is football legend Fran Tarkenton's son. I do quite a bit of work in the financial services industry. Fran has several companies in that area. He and I have become friends through the years, and so it was a good excuse to actually wear pants, which I do still have on, even if you can't see them. Most of my work is actually done in the financial, not exclusively, but most of my work is done in the financial services and insurance industry. My background happens to be in insurance, life insurance specifically. So I know we have, I believe it's Alan, who's New York Life here, a couple other in the insurance business. It used to be a good way to clear a room was tell people you're in the insurance business, right, Alan? So I was not an initial success. In fact, I had no money when I started. It took me roughly 6 months to have less money than when I started. And I had a conversation with my manager at the time. Now you call this person maybe a managing partner, managing director. We called him a GA in my business. And his name was James. I said, James, I just don't think I'm cut out for this business. He had a one-word response, and that response was, yeah. I said, I think I'm going to quit. He said, okay. I was still a little, somehow, I don't know how, but I was still somewhat cocky in this moment as a 21-year-old college graduate from Tulane University making no money with a major in political economy where most of my peers went into law school. And I said to James, I said, I am going to quit, but first I'll set a record for this company. He said, whatever, dude, just get back to work. That's how they talk in California. Whatever, dude, just get back to work. And so it was around that time, and I do want to open this up if you're so inclined. This was the time that someone recommended what you might call my first experience with a motivational seminar of some kind. Do any of you remember your first experience with a motivational seminar of some kind, maybe a conference? Bob, if you could unmute, just who was it for you? Do you remember who it was, what the experience was?
Yeah. One of the first ones, it was an Amway prospect. Actually, it was a big pin, a guy named Bill Britt, probably one of the biggest Amway pins out there. This is like 1988, 1989. And I remember him sharing a scriptural verse about without vision, people perish. And it stuck in my head from a long time ago.
There's a book, I don't know if I have it in front of me, that might be interested in, Bob. It's called Success, Motivation, and the Scriptures, and references everything from Think and Grow Rich to cybernetics, psycho-cybernetics, to cults, and to just complete redirects of spiritual truths. But it's a fascinating book, one I highly recommend, written in the 70s, by the way. It's been rewritten, called The Chase, endorsed by John Maxwell. But spiritual truths, how this has become the success industry, either an exacerbation or alteration or just pontification of what is in that holy book. That's not the subject of today, but the subject is choose powerfully. One simple choice can change the course of your life. This is the subtext of this little book. For me, it was a man by the name of Brian Tracy. He's a Canadian man. It's hard to call, at least back in the 90s, hard to call Brian Tracy a motivational seminar, but that's what they called it. And it was about 10 hours. I applied as much as I could. And about 3 months after this initial conversation with my leader, my manager, I actually did set a record for the company. These were individual life apps, and I only reference this because we've got some producers on this call. It was 18 individual life apps in 1 week, which at that time was a record for this company. So James came up to me the next day and said, "Are you going to quit now?" I said, "I'm good now. I like it here. I think I'll stick around." And when you get to that next level, there's always a next level, whether it's a next level of production, productivity, joy, intimacy, whatever that is. Once you get there, particularly if it's elusive, the experience of life becomes very different. For a long time, I said, in fact, I repeated this in seminars throughout the years. I said, that man changed my life. That seminar changed my life. That program changed my life. It took me a few years to realize, I'm curious, would you agree with this? No matter how great the seminar is, the speaker, the book, the training, the conference, the Amway, the New York Life, no matter how great it is, nobody and no thing can change your life without your participation, without a level of choice on your part. And that is why the subtext of this book is that one simple choice can change the course of your life. That's really the permeation of everything that I do. Positive change begins with a positive choice. I grew up in the Southeast, Florida specifically, a junior high school and high school in Alabama, school in New Orleans. Let's see, parents live in Tennessee. I live in Georgia now. I've been in and out of Georgia for 25 plus years. Every southeastern state with the possible exception of Arkansas and Mississippi. Hard to grow up in the South without hitting a Waffle House or two. I know we have a couple in Texas. Has anyone here not been to a Waffle House? Oh my goodness, Randy, you've never been to a Waffle House. And Steve, this is your first powerful choice. Please go.
I was in the Air Force in Georgia. I mean, I was in plenty of them.
Oh, you were playing, because that's a yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I recommend
Yes,
2 o'clock in the morning. It's a wonderful human behavior experiment to observe not just the those being served, but those serving. It is really, that's again, I digress. There is a side dish in the Waffle House called the Waffle House hash brown. And they've actually trademarked one of the ways you can order this hash brown. It's called scattered, smothered, and covered. So if you could just please, if we can do this in unison, I know this is a tough task to ask with 7, 8, 9, 10 people, but let's just try this. Let's unmute. And as soon as we're finished, we got to mute back, but please unmute and say in your best Southern Texas voice or wherever you're from. If you're not from the South, fake it. And together we will say in our best Southern voice, scattered, smothered, and covered. Here we go.
Scattered,
smothered,
and
smothered.
Mother.
That sounds like a Southern quote. Fantastic. And the reason this is so natural sometimes is this is how we naturally, or I would say maybe unnaturally, live our lives. Particularly when a crisis breaks out, man, we're scattered at home, we're covered up at work. These so-called smart devices just sometimes make us feel dumb, and life becomes, how do I just reclaim some level of focus, some level of positivity, some level of mindset that's supportive of the experience of life that I say that I want. So just to give an informal survey, we can do this one in the chat. Just type in on the chat if you would. Just in the last 72 hours, is it fair to say you've been less than 100% focused? You can put in a number there, kind of 0 to 10. In general, last 72 hours, where have you been, scale of 0 to 10? On your level of focus, the last 72 hours, we'll carve it into maybe the last, 100%. Fantastic. 50%. Okay, good. 50%. Okay, cool. 50%. I got a lot of 50%, 90%, 85%. Okay, cool. In the last, let's see, the 24 hours, have you been less than 100% crystal clear focus? Maybe the last 2 hours, if you have no idea what you're doing on this call right now, I mean, this could apply to you. And life just, I see 94.6, man, that is a specific number, Todd. I wonder how the algorithm you had to come up with that. Fantastic. Oh, good. So the question is like, what is that gap? Whatever that gap is, and maybe it comes and goes. Maybe you're 90% sometimes, and 94.6 other times. Maybe something less than that. So the question is like, if you could reclaim that consistently, despite all this stuff. I think I talked to David last time. I changed the way I talked about this. I was saying the strange new normal. And that breeds a certain level of comfort or lack thereof. I changed it to the way my dad used to respond when he was asked a question. Pastor Grady, how are you? He says, no matter how he was, he'd say, I'm living an exciting life. So how are you during these exciting times we're living in? And how can you reclaim your focus given this exciting time? I want to give you 3 simple strategies that you can apply right now. Very simple to say, not always easy to do. Strategy number 1 is to take something off your plate. You may have noticed if you're on the call earlier, I look a little different than that headshot, the professional headshot that I stuck up there, a little bit of personal growth here. If you've seen me on these big stages throughout the years, I'm speaking for New York Life or Equitable or Mutual of Omaha, most of the time I'm clean shaven. Sometimes I have a beard. And when I'm growing this, I'll see usually a family member who hasn't seen me in some time, and it'll be coming out something like this after they've seen me clean shaven. They'll say something very profound. They'll say, dude, you're growing a beard. But this is only partly true because, as I'm sure Steve can attest to this, you don't actually grow a beard. You do nothing. And the beard grows. In fact, you have to do something to stop the growth of this particular beard. Similarly, we do stuff, we do things, we engage in activities, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, consumption. We do stuff that minimizes our own personal and professional, spiritual, emotional, business growth. So part of life, I've been to the ton of these seminars, Bob, maybe similar to you since that first one with Amway. I mean, this was my life with seminars for personally and professionally for the better part of 15 years. And they all tell you to do stuff. They say, learn this, do this, apply this, do this, and it's relevant, sure. But sometimes life is not about doing more stuff. It's about doing less stuff. It's about doing less of that which holds you back, about taking stuff off the plate, taking the weeds out of the garden so that the garden can grow. So what can you do less of or not at all? Number one is to take something off your plate. Number two is to get a bigger plate. So you've got a plate, you've got a capacity, this is what you're capable of right now. How do you get this to go out to here, out to here, out to here? What disciplines are you engaging in so that you can expand what you're capable of? As Andy Stanley, a well-known person here in the Atlanta area, says, you're either going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're going out of a storm. So sooner or later that storm's coming, sooner or later that opportunity's coming. Do you have the capacity? Do you have a big enough plate to handle it, or are you just at the end of your envelope and you just can't take any more? The choices you engage in, not just once in a while, but consistently, will support you in either getting a bigger, smaller, or the same plate. Number two is get a bigger plate. Number three, and we'll dive a little bit deeper with this one, it's very simply one bite at a time. And this means carving out specific performance standards, minimum standards, so something always gets done. I want to give you 3 criteria for this one bite at a time, setting up performance standards in any area of life, personal, professional, or otherwise. There's 3 M's. So if you're jotting these down, M number 1 is more than what you're doing. So you look at what your standard is. And by the way, we have a standard for everything. David talked about some of his personal standards in the area of fitness, started out with a plank and sort of elevated and escalated and rippled out from there. We've all got standards, whether we call it this or not, for our physical fitness. Here's another informal survey here. Just type in the chat and whatever it is here, just jot it in, 0 to 7. On average, just defined by 20 minutes minimum, what's been your average standard for physical exercise weekly? So 0 to 7, how many times have you exercised per week on average over the last 6 weeks? I got a 0, okay. 6, 0, 3, 3, 7. Wow, John. Okay, great, Kevin. So 3, 3, 7, 1, 4, great. Okay, so what's more than 0? We'll just use that as a round number. 1 is more than 0. If all you do is go from 0 to 1, this is not a trick question. Does this have the potential, just 0 to 1, to impact your life in a favorable way long term? There's studies, scientifically, there's studies that back this up. If all you do is exercise one time, 20 minutes, that's it, for the entire week, you decrease the chance of dying by certain fatal diseases by as much as 38 to 42%. I'm not making this up. This was a study done by the University of Sydney. 1 time a week, 20 minutes a day. So more than what you're doing. It might not be more, maybe less. In the area of health and nutrition, it could be less certain food substances. Big 3 tend to be dairy, sugar, and gluten for most people. Most people think it's fat. Fat is really not the culprit. In most cases, it's milk, sugar, and gluten. You take these 3 things out of your consumption, you'll lose somewhere between 10 to 16 pounds in the next 6 weeks. Part of the reason, you can never find anything to eat. Everything seems to have milk, sugar, or gluten. But here's the point. You look at the more side and the less side. I can do a little bit more here. I can do a little bit less here. That's my standard. That's the more/less. Second M is manageable. This means it's doable. You can do it. It's simple. It's quantifiable. It's not 0 to 7 overnight. Maybe it's 0 to 1. Maybe it's 1 to 2. Maybe it's I'll take milk, sugar, and gluten out of my consumption 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever. You can commit to it. You can do it. It's manageable. Third and final is medium term. It means it's got a beginning and an end. It's not forever. One of the reasons why New Year's resolutions have been broken by February on average by most people is the term is too long. Most people cannot get their head around, I'll do this or I'll be this every day for 365 days of the year. It feels like forever. ever. Going from 0 to 1 is an infinity percentage better. Thanks, Todd. So here's the point. You put a term on it, this last thing, this last M, you've got a beginning and an end, as defined by medium term, 21 days at the minimum, 90 days at the maximum. Here's some examples. There's a 21-day reboot, I think it is, a 24-day fix. I may be mixing those up. There's Whole 30. This is a 30-day cleanse. There's a 40 days of focus, which is our program. You engage in a personal discipline. This is the program David mentioned. Personal discipline every day, 40 consecutive days. Pay attention to the impact. 40 days of focus. There's P90X. There are 66-day business programs. There is a hard it's called a hard 75, which is it's a free program. You do. It's got some specifics. You can look it up, but it's guess how many days? I'll give you a hint, 75 days. So all these things have a beginning and an end. They're not forever. So let me give you an example. I think this was 2 New Year's Eves ago, maybe 3. It's still my favorite example. My wife, we've got mostly men on here. No offense, Patricia, but maybe the men with wives can relate to this. My wife says to me, honey, we should go on a cleanse. Yes, of course we should. And so there's some mores on the one side, there's some lesses on the other. On the less, there's no milk, no dairy, no processed sugar, no gluten. Those are 3 of the things we talked about. There's also no red meat. There's no pork, that means no bacon, no alcohol, no fun, I think was actually on that list. These are all the lesses. Randy's going, no way. These are all lesses. That's none. Okay, none of that. And then on the more side, it's all the fun stuff. There's more water, more greens, more vegetables, more lean protein, and there's supplements every day. I think it was 3 days a week, three times a day. So we're 6 days into this thing and the supplements still have not arrived. They arrived day 7. So in my wife's infinite wisdom now, Bob, we're on a 36-day cleanse because of course we have to do the supplements for the 30 days. Here's the point. You can lock it in for whatever it is, 30 days, 36 days, 40 days, 66 days. You lock it in, you do the work, you allow the program to do what the program promises because there's some reason you sign up for it in the first place. And on day 37, we all go out and have a margarita and a pizza. We decide what value we got from this thing and if and how we want to continue. It's not forever. Lock it in, 36 days, 40 days. You can put this parameter yourself on there, no more than 90 days, or you can plug into a program, a hard 75, 40 days of focus, a 30-day cleanse, a whole 30, 66-day business program, whatever. But you got a beginning, you got an end, you go all in and you pay attention. There's one more I'll throw out there. There's a book called The 12-Week Year. This is less than 90 days. It's putting 1 year into 12 weeks. It's got a beginning and an end. By the way, with a 12-week year, now you have 4 New Year's Eves, 4 New Year's Days. You get to celebrate 4 times throughout the year. It's exciting stuff, but here's the point. It's less than 90 days. There's a beginning and there is an end. You lock it in. With this as a structure, you'll hear me say that word a couple times, structure. It is truly possible that the promise of this little book, which is one simple choice can change the course of your life, can be fulfilled within this structure. There's a simple formula to it. It's very simply choose, stay the course, pay attention. We'll talk about these one at a time. Positive change begins with a positive choice. One simple choice. Criteria for a choice, just start with one. It doesn't have to be the perfect choice. It doesn't have to be the forever choice. It certainly doesn't have to be the perfect time. In fact, the imperfect time sometimes is the time to make one simple choice to change the course of your life. So you look at, what am I not doing? That if I did it, something simple that could change the course of my life. Starts with one simple choice. Some of you, I'm sure, will follow this reference, the great Canadian philosopher Grady Lee. He said, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. So all of that stuff that we're tolerating, we're putting up with, we're resisting, that stuff we're actually choosing, even though we say we don't want it. Very nice, Michael. That was the lead singer of Rush. We're choosing to stay there by not making simple shifts, simple tweaks, simple choices that can breed over time something other than that. Choose is number one. Now, we've all had situations where we've chosen, at least on the surface, and nothing seems to change. And it's because of a lack of step number 2, which is stay the course. I mentioned some of these 30, 21, 40-day programs, 60-day programs. They all have a beginning and an end. Here's what they also have in common. Most people do not follow through on step number 2, which means they don't make it to the completion of the program. They give up, they quit, statistically sometime between day 7 and day 10. If you quit a 40-day program on day 7, day 10, or even day 38, you can never say the program didn't work. All you can say is you didn't allow the program to fulfill what you signed up for in the first place. Self-induced or other. When I say signed up, you're giving your commitment. I'm going to read every night for 6 weeks. I'm going to study for this test. I'm going to, study for the next exam. I'm going to do an hour, I'm going to do an hour 5 days a week, whatever that is. You lock that in and you do that work. Otherwise, you can never say, oh, that didn't work. You didn't work. So you've got to find a way to stay the course, to do the work when you don't feel like it, when you don't want to, when it's inconvenient, when you're too tired and you just want to give up. You find a way to stay the course. And then number 3, steps 1 and 2 being a given is really more valuable than the other 2 combined. These programs that I have been through in the past, that I've taught in the past, most of them follow around mostly steps 1 and 2. You choose, you make a commitment and you follow through, you make a commitment, you follow through, and ultimately life will change. There is a lot of truth to that. If all you do is say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym every day for 40 days, and you actually show up and you make it into the gym and you move, something will shift. The hardest part about the workout for most people is not the workout itself. Do you know what it is? It's getting to the gym. Once you get there, you might as well work out, right, Damien? I mean, once you get there, I might as well work out. It's very seldom, the workout is very seldom as difficult as we make it in our minds to be, except for yesterday. Other than that, I mean, they're all okay. Yesterday I was on a run. I mean, this was the worst. I was slow, lethargic, tired, heavy, and in about 33 minutes, I think I'd gone about, less than 2 miles. But I did it anyway. It was uncomfortable. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun, but I did feel a little bit better that I did it instead of didn't do it. So you got to kind of get yourself in there, even when you don't want to, you don't feel like it, it's inconvenient, whatever. But here's the real transformational aspect in these 3 steps. Is number 3, which is pay attention. So it's, what do you pay attention to? When the workout sucks, when you don't want to read, when you don't feel like following through, but you do it and you pay attention to that. Well, maybe that itself was a win. Maybe the fact that I showed up instead of didn't show up. Maybe the fact that I actually did the work instead of letting myself off the hook. Maybe I can pay attention to that. How might that apply in other areas of my life? This formula has changed the life of people all over the world. I didn't make it up. All I did is I saw it. I saw it in my own life, and now I see it in other people's life. This unrolled out for me, I guess, now it's been a while now. It's been 2008-ish. Maybe some of you can remember the most recent crisis other than this one. The bottom dropped out of the real estate market. I had a company that was 80% dependent on real estate that I somehow talked myself into buying based on 2 ideas of thinking that I thought were completely accurate. Number 1, it can't get any worse. Number 2, I can sell my way out of anything. I was wrong on both counts. I bought a company based on multiple streams of income that I now had multiple streams of expenses, and all of my demons caught up with me along the way. I ended up broke. That was actually not the worst of it. Mentally and emotionally, I was completely broken, scattered, smothered, and covered. I went from California to Atlanta with my tail between my legs, and I just ended up stuck, to put it mildly. I mean, I was drinking excessively, I had a bad attitude, and this was on a pretty good day. Now, men, at least men in North America, when men have a midlife crisis, there are a couple of go-tos. So if you want to just unmute yourself, there are 2 correct answers. Men have 2 go-tos, according to Steve Harvey. Top 2 answers on the board they go to. Number 1, Randy?
Alcohol.
Well, alcohol, that is true, yes. We're going to put alcohols and constant beneath those. In addition to alcohol, there are two answers that Steve Harvey's looking for. Number one,
Women.
women, and number two, cars and women. Unless you're in Canada, I did a speaking engagement in Vancouver, British Columbia for about 100 entrepreneurs. I said, what do men in Canada do when they have a midlife crisis? And one of the men said, we go shoot a bear. I did not know that. I did not go shoot a bear. I did not get a new car. And I did not find another woman, mostly because these things require money. I did not have any money. My midlife crisis took a very different form. I was at my home office, which was really a table on the side of my kitchen. I put my head down and threw my hands up, and I said, God, I give up. I can't do this. Just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And I actually got an answer. You know, David to talk, I guess when Brandy introduced me, part of my bio is that I did some mission work. And my first mission trip was within a month of this breakdown. I went with my church. I didn't have any money. It was sponsored, and I went. And I got to see how some of the rest of the world lives, people that have been given far less on their best days than what I still had on what I thought was my worst day ever. And that was kind of the 1-2 punch for me is, man, you've been given much. I still had a roof over my shoulders. I still had food. I still had a phone. I still had friends. I still had family. I mean, I had a lot of stuff. I had resources and networks that I could call on. Wasn't really calling on them, but I had them. And we have all been given much. Punch number two is, what are you giving? Like, what are you giving with what you have been given? It was a very strong message. It's you are giving very little. Now, I don't know how you're giving, how you're showing up. And my guess is it's much more powerfully than I was at the time, but just give yourself a gut check. I was showing up. I'd go to meetings. I would pick up the phone. I'd network a little bit. 50% of the population, that's not absolutely, Kevin. I mean, I was going through the motions, but I was not fully engaged. My father, retired Reverend Mr. Grady, he had this story he used to tell us as kids. He said, you know, there was this man preaching in a mental institution, and the preacher said, why are we all here? And one of the people said, because we're not all there. Have you ever had a time where you're there, you're just not all there? That's where I was. And crises can kind of put us there. I was talking with David on the podcast that, look, when this whole thing hit, comparatively, I was a king. I mean, I had more money, I had more resources, I had more friends, I had a better attitude, and still I found myself getting sucked back into that anxiety, that negativity, that irritation, that frustration. Even though on the surface, I was way better prepared for it than I was in 2007 when the stuff hit the fan. So these major shifts can get us sucked into something that's less than the optimal experience of who we are as people, the man, the woman, the mother, the father, the business owner, the brother, the son, that we know ourselves to be at our best. And that's what happened. I don't know if this ever happened to you. It can happen slightly, it can happen majorly, and it can shift in one simple shift. It really started with a simple shift, but I remember thinking so grandiose. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go all in. I'm going all in. 6 months of going all in. I'm going to recommit. And I meant it. You know, it was a little frantic. And this term actually is from a game called poker. Anybody play poker on this call? Just raise your hand. We can do. Okay, so I saw Kevin first. Kevin, do you mind unmuting yourself and explaining to the non-poker community what this term all in means and what can happen when you go all in?
You either double your money or you lose it all.
Yeah. Okay. That's very succinct, man. A few words. That's right. So here's what happens. These are all the resources you have. These are some poker tips from all over the place. See what else I have. I've got a phone here. I think this retails at a couple $1,000. I got a couple $100 in my wallet, and my truck keys are around here somewhere. So, but let's just say that this is what I'm playing with. I'll try to give you a visual here. So these are all the resources that I have in this game of life at this particular moment. And when you go all in, as Kevin said, you take these and you have to push them into the middle of the table. So they're going to be off screen here, and you have to stop touching them. And as soon as you stop touching them, something magical occurs. They no longer belong to you. And one of two things can happen, as Kevin said, you get them all back, plus everything else on the table, or you lose everything forever. And this four-letter word that starts with an F kicks into your brain and body. That's right, fear is the word we were looking for, because you can get it all back, or you can lose all of this: the wallet, the money, the ID, the phone, the chips, the car. And a similar mechanism happens when you're faced with just simple, subtle shifts. I'm going to do 10 minutes of prayer meditation every day. I'm going to do, a mile of walking every day. Whatever it is, the brain goes, yeah, but you've tried that crap before. It's probably not going to work out. That resistance shows up, and we just choose not to decide. You go all in, you cannot lose it all. You go all in on business, on life, on your relationship, on your health. You may not succeed. You may not get the desired intention, but here's the best part. It won't be for lack of commitment. Have you ever failed in a business, a relationship, a competition, a challenge? And if you're honest with yourself, you know you weren't all in. You know you weren't committed. If you're all in, hey, you may lose. I remember thinking, I may lose that. It wasn't even a house. It was an apartment. I may lose the apartment. I may lose the car. I was 8 hours away from pawning my last possession called my car. Didn't end up doing it, but I was very, very close. I may lose the car. I may lose the house. Didn't have a woman at the time, so I couldn't lose that. I may lose the dog, but it won't be for lack of commitment. And so I committed. And it started with one simple choice for me. It was a personal commitment of recommitting to physical exercise. It was more than what I was doing. I said I'd do 30 minutes a day. At the time, I was doing very little. It was medium term. I committed for 30 days. It was manageable, I thought. With 30 minutes, it would be simple. Here's what happened. First 6 days, no problem. Day 7, I was coming back from an engagement, I think, in Texas. I hit the door of my apartment, a hot July day, and I got to the door of my apartment about 11:17 p.m. So just picture this. You get back after a long day, Patricia, you had a long, hectic, drawn-out day. You get to the door of your home. It's 11:17 p.m. You have 43 minutes to commit to 30 minutes of that physical exercise or not. And that little voice, what does that little voice start saying to you? Type it in the chat if you want to unmute yourself. That's fine with me. I don't feel it tomorrow. Say sleep. That's right, Michael. Sleep. I can do it tomorrow. I don't need. Sometimes it can sound very noble or very regal or very clever. I remember thinking, I thought this was actually logical. I thought to myself, I'm still sore from yesterday. I should probably recover for one more day. Whatever that voice says to you, this voice is not your friend. This voice wants you to lie to yourself to get you out of integrity with what you said you would do. So put yourself in this experience, whatever it is you tell yourself to do. I'm going to clean out the garage. I'm going to spend more time with the kids. I'm going to spend more time with my faith. I'm going to do more exercise. I'm going to read more. I'm going to do less social media. I'm going to turn off the television. And still you find yourself on the social media, on the television, not reading, not exercising, whatever that is for you. Think about it. It's that little voice that talks you out of it, that lets you off the hook. In this one situation, I was able to choose a different voice. In fact, I turned this into a logo. This is a voice my father would say when I didn't want to do the so-called character building activities of our youth. I don't know if you can read this, but it says, do it anyway. And these are the words my dad would say when I didn't want to clean my room or eat my vegetables or chop wood or other such child abusing tasks as a kid. I would say, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I'm too tired. How come my sister doesn't have to chop the wood or mow the lawn? My dad would say these 3 little words, do it anyway. And I hated those words because there's not much of a rebuttal to do it anyway. And I'd like you to consider that there's really not much of a rebuttal to your words, your integrity. Integrity means X equals X. I say I'm going to get up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever clock it is, X equals X. I say I'm going to study 30 minutes a day, X equals X. But we know sometimes X, something gets in the way, and X equals other than X. That's just the space between. When you do it anyway, you cut through all that crap, and X, I'm too tired, I'm too frustrated, I'm too irritated, I'm too sore, the weather's bad, the news, oh my God, have you seen the news? Did you see what they said today on CNN, CNBC, Fox, fill in the blank? I can't do that now. Whatever that crap is, you can cut through it with the do it anyway. And this was a really surreal moment for me. It's been a surreal moment for a lot of people. I've used this little mantra. I take no credit. Other than being on the receiving end, I use these words. I got on the floor. I went through movements and motions that some people might consider to be exercise. There was nothing pretty about it, nothing pleasant about it. There was certainly nothing fun about it or inspired. But after 30 minutes, I could say, all right, I did it anyway. Ultimately, when you can get yourself in the area, successful people come on these calls. So please let me assure you, there is no insult coming your way, no talking down to you. I want to talk up to you. I have no doubt that you are all functioning on a level much higher than I was at that time. And at the same time, no matter how we're functioning, we all have this pivot point that lets us off the hook in at least one area of our life. And I got to see very clearly, and I'll close with this, what was missing in my life. It's the same thing that's missing in any area of your life. This is a call, not a work call, as far as I'm concerned. I speak on the person, including but not limited to the outcome of our work. In any area that we're not consistently fulfilled in, when we're not consistently expressed, it's a lack of one thing. It's one word, and that word is integrity, as defined by doing what you say you're going to do, whether you feel like it or not. If you want to get a little deeper, it's being the man, being the woman, being the mother, the business owner, the son, the daughter, who I say I am, who you say you are consistently. Now, we all fall short of this from time to time. Here's what can happen. Picture, if you will, I don't have one in front of me. I'm actually but picture, if you will, a ball, and this ball is a break in the integrity. What comes into that break is not great stuff. It's things like fear and anxiety and frustration and unrest. When you break your integrity with yourself, that same stuff comes in. You start to question yourself. You start to wonder, are you really all that? You start to say, okay, maybe I can't. Maybe I'm less than. Doesn't happen overnight, but what can happen, if you can picture this deflating ball, you may feel uncentered, unbalanced, less resilient, and you may even end up stuck. One simple choice can change the course of your life. When you do it over time, when you do it consistently, you reclaim this focus, you reclaim this center, you claim this integrity, you're whole and complete, lacking nothing. Yet another definition of integrity. So I'll open this up. I think we are coming down to the wire here. I'll put my information in here. I heard someone say no selling, yelling, or telling, so hopefully my volume was okay. Hopefully I shared instead of sold, and I invite you to have a conversation. If any of this is interesting enough to say, yes, let's talk about how this might apply in my life, particularly you guys that are in the financial world. I have a track record here, many people that you probably actually know. And so I welcome the opportunity to talk with you on how I could potentially be of service to you and to your team. So I will put David's got my information, and the best way, you can just email me at my website. Pretty hard to remember. It's douggrady.com. And David's got my direct line. You're welcome to reach out to me. That was private, David. So let me get this on the publicly. Everyone. Okay. So let's unmute. If you have any questions for the last couple of minutes, we're on here. I'm happy to address those. And if not, I will close the same way I'll close if you do have questions, which is choose simply, choose powerfully, choose now. One simple choice. Thank you, Steve. I want to take a picture of that. Contains the course of your life. I really appreciate it. Any questions, comments, considerations for the greater good of the group?
Randy, go ahead.
So I have to ask this question, Doug. Do you have a new book that kind of corresponds with what you've said today?
Well, the book you have is really, this has been an evolution of the book that you have. What we're launching right now is a high-end, it's application only. It's a group mentoring program. The four corners of this is number one, focus, reclaiming, and this will probably be a chapter of each book. I don't know, it's not written yet, but it's reclaiming your focus. It's making choices from that focus. It's structuring those choices and executing on those choices through the structure. So those are the four cornerstones, which I didn't explicitly articulate, but if you're really looking on a rehaul or rehash or a regroup, it's focus, choice, structure, execution. Those are the four things that will change anything and make it sustainable. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, if you have a question, just go ahead and open up your mic and do it. Just keep it short. We're getting down about 5 minutes left, and I want to.
I don't have a question per se. I do have a comment, a thank you, Doug. Like you, I've been to a lot of motivational things, and they all tell you, what to do, and they don't tell you how to do it, and they don't get into the details behind the how. And today is the first time I've heard someone get in behind the details of the how or what. So I want to just thank you for that. That makes a lot of difference to me.
Amen, brother.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Doug, I can attest to that. I mean, it's amazing, and everything you said is actually true, and I can prove it in my own life. Any other questions anybody has?
No, I just wanted to make a quick statement. I was going to skip this call today. I'm buried. I got so much stuff I have to do. It's not funny, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. I thought about skipping too. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, he called me yesterday and says, "Do I really have to do this?" No.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I welcome a conversation or just staying connected through your favorite source of social media or otherwise. And David, always good to see you.
Thanks, Doug. And by the way, anybody that does want to reach out to Doug, it's well worth the time. I know he's actually going through, so hopefully he's moving into a house here soon. That's one of the things you've got going. So
this is a personal thing, which I don't often share, but this is not my normal setup. My wife was laid off. Our lease was up. So we're not homeless, but we're not in our home, and we haven't been for 2.5 months. So we're staying in a buddy's rental property right now. That's why you see the plugs and my dog over there, and not my typical setup. But it's been a good thing from just an exploration standpoint and turning something positive out of something uncomfortable. My wife is back to work, and sooner or later we'll be somewhere. So in the meantime, this is what you get.
Well, guys, Doug, the thing that I have to say is you live the statement of integrity, because in process of moving, I know all those things, and it's easy to say, yeah, I don't feel like it, or I've got a good excuse. And you basically just in that little moment there, and the fact that you're here and you showed up, you prove that you do it anyway.
That's right.
That is the integrity that you teach. And by the way, I just want to say this, because I know you don't know this group, but I always say, and they've heard me say this many times, it's a very high integrity group. And when people say that they're going to do things, that's why we continue to thrive through COVID-19. That's why we've continued to do a lot of things we've done. That's why I don't have to worry about people paying their $2, because people do what they say in this group. And I'm honored that they continue to be part of this group and that they do it anyway, and they have that integrity. Let's give Doug a hand. I know he can't hear it all. You can continue to thank him when the meeting is officially over. We've got 3 minutes. I just want to close out with letting you know that our Mark McIntosh is our speaker next Friday. And so I encourage you to be there. If you're ever his whole business is around helping you as a business owner and entrepreneur use LinkedIn. And we've had LinkedIn teachers before, but and he's not in the immediate Dallas area, but he will be on this and training. And I think it's time. I mean, we're, in this virtual world, we're all trying to figure out ways to connect, when we're not in each other's presence with the same level of success, intimacy, and building of relationships. And it's tough. And so I think he'll give us some ideas and some ways that we can leverage tools that are available to us. So with that, I do appreciate everybody being here also for the men on the call, which there's a lot of you. We do have Men's Breakfast Network tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I know a number of you on here will be there. We're doing it like we do Wednesdays, so it's augmented reality. So if you want to be at the original Pancake House around, I suggest around 7:30, 7:45, get your breakfast, and there will be probably about maybe 10 guys in the room, I would imagine, and we'll probably have about that many, maybe more on the Zoom. So if you've never joined that group, there's nothing really sinister or weird about it. It's really men caring and supporting men. Anybody that's been on there will say that that's what we do. It's a little different format. You'll have a chance to kind of share really kind of the things that your decisions you're making, the things you're doing, and where we can help you. And then it gives you a tee up to make build relationships from there, hopefully deeper. Guys don't do a very good job of this. I mean, I'm just being self-critical there. But that's the whole purpose of this group. That group is really just to support men, build relationships. So if that's useful to you or you want to help other guys, I encourage you to be there tomorrow. It's the same Zoom link we're using here. So if you can't get to the Pancake House, and I know Randy, you're going to be there. Lloyd, I think you RSVP'd, you're going to be there. So I know you guys will most likely be on Zoom, and that's cool. That is totally fine. During these times, especially. Bob, you can even join even though you're in Fort Worth. So, but I encourage you to do that. Again, thank you, Doug. I know that you had to move on. He had to move on, but I'm putting it on I'm still recording, so I want to make sure it's out there. I will put this and last week's Friday on video here shortly.